All of my creative life, up until now even, I've been chewed up by this need to produce something original, something I can be proud of. And I'm sure you can relate. And I'm sure that you've also told yourself, oh, I'm just uncreative, or maybe I'm boring, maybe I can't do this. None of that is true, because creativity is not this magic spell that you're just born with. It's a skill, it's a muscle, it's something that you can get better at. And so with a few simple protocols, you can become more creative within weeks, maybe even days. And I mean that, I'm serious. I've picked these up over the years and I've applied them to making videos, to thumbnail design, to writing, and more recently photography. So from my heart, I know these work, I know they have substance. I want to start with one of the most misunderstood ideas of creativity and original thinking, this idea of taste. But before we get to the more maybe controversial stuff, what actually is it? What is taste? Well, nothing comes from nothing, right? If you want to produce an original film, an original book, or even just a new idea, you need your so-called raw materials to work from. You need something to build upon. You need something to work with. Taste is your creative eye. It's your filter of what works versus what doesn't. It's your ability to understand and appreciate certain creative choices. And finally, it's your instinct for quality, coherence, and style. And all of that shapes your own creation. Taste cannot materialize out of nothing like 500 cigarettes would. And it's also not this elitist passive trait that you're born into, that only the rich have access to. It's none of that. Like you're a chef in the kitchen, you have to actively, fill your fridge with the raw ingredients that will eventually inspire your own cooking, your own original creations. So how do you grow taste? Well, you have to consume other people's creative work, especially in the realm that you are trying to improve in. And I've completely made this graph up, right? But I've split it into 3 different stages that maybe get harder and harder over time, but are more beneficial for refining and sharpening your taste. At the bottom of our pyramid is breadth. And this is when you immerse yourself in as wide a range as possible of creative work. And this matters because if we have a narrow pool to judge from, then our conclusions will be equally narrow. For example, I love to sample and smell and collect smelly alcohol. Fragrances. I get it, for some people it's just some bullshit at the duty free, right? But it is an art form, and there is a creative process behind it, and I love it for that. This was one of my first bottles, Davidoff's Cool Water. Your dad probably wears it. And back in the day, I used to think this was liquid gold. I loved the stuff. And you know what? It's still great, but after having written 200 reviews and plowing through samples and buying way too many bottles, I can now safely say it's nothing special. Or at least, to not put it down, there is more to this world than this. And I have only just scratched the surface. I trained my nose, and I can now better judge what is done well versus what is screechy, what is unique versus what is bland. In other words, you build a benchmark for quality and you grow it over time. Now, most people will say focus on the great works, the masterpieces of literature and film and art. And you know what? That's good advice. I agree. But I also think you should consume bad art and average art. Because the point here is to build range. You're creating a benchmark, a scale that you can then place new things upon. And in order to do that, you have to know what both sides look like. You have to know what the ugly side looks like. The bad side. The second stage of growing taste is curation. Because, breadth is relatively passive. You're just enjoying the art. You're enjoying the ideas. You're trying to get a feel for what's out there. This step makes it active. Curation is when you pick out and organize a collection of creative works or ideas, and you're specifically looking for quality or meaning or artistic value. For the thinker, it might look like a commonplace book of the most interesting ideas. For the film bro, it's his Letterboxd. And for the fashion people, it's doom scrolling on Vinted. Now here you are training your taste through discrimination. Discrimination, we think of it as an ugly word, but really it's a good thing. You must now justify why some things are better than others, and then create a collection that represents your values, your taste, your knowledge of this topic. This is why I feel almost disgusted when I see these massive aimless collections of anything. It could be anything. And it's like you don't have any taste, you have a shopping addiction. You're just buying shit because it exists, not because you know about it or you care or any of that. You're just an addict. We can pretty much call curation aesthetic consumerism. It's like a noble, elitist form of it, right? And I say elitist, but that's not true really, because curation doesn't have to involve you buying something. Let's be clear on that. You don't have to go out there and collect these things literally like a museum would. Because, come on, I mean, this stuff gets expensive. We can't always afford to do that. Curation for you can come in the form of writing reviews or creating a blog about things, or forget all that. Even just having a personal sort of list of what you like, that counts as curation. And sometimes it's the only thing we can do. I have a physical collection of some things, books, fragrances, but I also have, I guess, an internal curation of everything else I like. There's just the things I gravitate towards. The final step, and easily the hardest, is criticism. Now you have to put logic and reason behind your choices. Can you explain your taste? It's not easy. This step forces you to do your research, to get out there, to talk to people, to really sharpen your taste until you're capable of defending it. Now that's how you build taste, but remember I said it was very misunderstood. Well, let's get back to that idea. Now lots of people think taste is about consuming loads of great work, picking out the bits they liked from everything, and then mashing them together in this hybrid mutant that you can call your own. Now, there's truth to that. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it's only half the story. You consume great works not just to borrow ideas for yourself, but to see how great minds and how great artists actually think. Why do they do this? Why does it set them apart? Why did they make this specific decision, and how does it influence the work? By studying what they do, you start to think like them. And almost like a mentor with a master, you learn taste from those who already have it. And that is one of the best paths to originality. Next up is the question of inspiration, which, to be honest, is also confusing. Like, where does it come from? Sometimes you're sat there at your desk, trying to squeeze something original out, but nothing happens. You get frustrated, you get pissed off, it's a mess, right? Now, this will sound counterintuitive, and you have to let me explain. One of the best things you can do for new inspiration is to just ignore it completely. Seriously, just forget about it. And this is because your brain will do the work for you, but only if you let it, only if you give it the room to do so. There's this area of the brain called the default mode network, which is linked to reflection and contemplation, and it's especially active during wakeful rest, which is really just daydreaming, or just thinking to yourself without having an external distraction, like a task that you're doing. It's also linked to creativity, and so your job is to let this network work. Instead of filling every spare moment with something, with scrolling, with reading, with work, even productive things, you have to make sure you have moments of nothing. Moments that you can just be with yourself, to sit with your own thoughts and let this part of your brain work. Let it produce things, let it think, let it come up with new ideas. Then believe me, the ideas will come naturally. You don't even have to look for them. For me, for example, most of my video ideas just come to me like that in random moments of the day. When I'm at the gym, I'm showering, I'm walking around. It's less work for me to do, and I love it. It's great. Even better is if you can spend time in nature, which shows evidence of supporting that creative process. And apart from that, it just provides a beautiful, peaceful environment for reflection. The issue is we increasingly lose connection to it, and that is dangerous in a time where natural systems are as fragile as ever. This is why I've partnered with Planet Wild today. They are a nature protection group crowdfunded by a loyal community. Their job is to scout out the most impactful conservation projects around the world, which are funded by 20,000 plus members, including myself. That's from supporting endangered species to protecting the oceans or even restoring ancient forests. And you can think of it like crowdfunding for nature. It feels meaningful because they document their work through YouTube videos, which you may have already seen on your homepage, or through written reports in the app, and so we can see the outcome for ourselves. Back in college, I studied ecology, and so this is close to my heart, and I think it's important to reconnect people to the value of nature, and that's why I became a member. I'm personally keeping my eye close to home on their mission in Belgium, where they helped restore Europe's peatlands, which are a carbon sink that often go unnoticed in the headlines. If you want to make a difference, join Planet Wild today, and you can give whatever you are comfortable with, because even a little goes a long way. And of course, you can cancel anytime. Plus, the first 100 people to sign up using my code Odysseus4 will get their first month free. So you can just scan the QR code on screen or head to the link in the description. And if you want to see them in action first, then you should check out their Peatlands mission video, also linked down below. So thank you to Planet Wild, and I hope you enjoy. This next step to originality may sound like a contradiction to earlier, but believe me, it's not. There's nuance, you know the drill by now. Yes, you should emulate the thinking and sometimes even the style of other great artists and thinkers. But in doing so, remember that you create your own gold standard. Now, what does that mean? By that, I mean you should not just reproduce exactly what you see. And you might think, well, yeah, no shit, that's obvious. But it's not. It's not obvious because these are the people you look up to. And instinctively, you will try and do what they do. You will try and become like them. And even accidentally, that might mean you create what they create. When I watch other people's videos who I admire and look up to, I think, man, I want to make stuff like that. Like I want to do what they do. And it's the same everywhere. You're always looking up to someone better than you and someone who is more creative and more talented and more skilled than you. Because everyone is trying to be like someone else, we see clones, we see copying, we see 1,000 mediocre artists for every one excellent artist. It's good and natural to a degree, but you have to remember, you will never produce what they do. And I know that sounds crushing and kind of harsh at first, but it should actually be liberating. Their work is the product of their niche, their style, their education, their history. And so by trying to copy that from a second-hand perspective, you are pretty much destined to become a worse version of them. Because you will never have what they have. You will never have their unique conditions. And so the key to originality here then is not trying to replicate what they do, but being comfortable to say, well, you know what? That's how they roll. I'll let them. Good for them. They are who they are, and I am going to be who I am. I'm going to be my own thing, my own person. You have to have the balls and the risk-taking to go your own way and to make something that nobody else will or can make, because it's the sum of your experiences and your skills and your history and your taste. At first, it feels scary because you're pretty much stepping off the path and you're forced to carve your own. But you have to remember that that's what your role model did as well. At some point, they had to stop following the crowds, they had to do their own thing, they had to take a risk, and that ended up producing something that you are now trying to copy. And so the idea is to not copy it, to do your own thing, and to one day make something so uniquely you that other people will look up to it themselves. Next up is something that I admit I have to work on a bit more myself, but it's so important that I can't just leave it out. Do you remember how we said that we need to gather the raw materials for originality? Well, you can take that to a new level by immersing yourself in novelty, new places, new people, new ways of thinking, new approaches, anything to make you see differently. If your entire life is spent within your bedroom walls, then that is all you have to work with. That is your pool of experience, and it puts you at a pointless disadvantage. So instead, you have to get out there, you have to explore, you have to go to new places, see new people, do new things. I've noticed that since I started street photography, it's pushed me to stay out for longer stretches of time. And I know this sounds weird, but it helps me see more of the world. I see all these little interactions and moments and conflicts that I may have otherwise missed. And all of those are experience. All of those are experiences that help guide my creativity and help me think about the world in a different way. It's the same with travel, because how often do we see, these great artists and philosophers and thinkers go traveling, go on an expedition, and they come back with a radical new way to see the world, or something that then inspires their art, their masterpieces that we know them for. It's like cheating. It's an advantage that many people can't take advantage of or simply refuse to. And so you must cast this wide net, you must pull in all of these raw materials, these ingredients, and then you have more to work with. It's that simple. Closely related to that is this idea that polymaths used to get ahead, and we can actually borrow it here for original thinking. One of the powers of polymathy is that by learning across subjects, it makes you more flexible, so to speak. It helps you build mental models or frameworks of thinking that help you learn unfamiliar things faster. And because no topic is truly isolated from the next, it helps you see these unusual and exciting connections that someone else will have missed. For example, and this is on the more obvious side, but I want to get the point across. When I learned Photoshop ages ago, like the basics, it helped me understand light and color. And of course, that helped me shoot videos later on. And today, not to fondle my own balls too much, but it helps me learn photography much faster because I already have that base level of intuition that I can use here. It's a crossover. The takeaway for you is to not underestimate those skills or topics that feel like tangents to your main thing, because they could teach you a lot about the things you love. They could help you form connections. They could help you build unique ideas that no one else has because they don't have that crossover. Now for my edgiest, darkest, and most evil point. One of the quickest but most uncomfortable ways to become more original is to do what nobody else is willing to do, either because it makes them anxious or is too risky or whatever else. For example, and I'm sorry to bring it up again, but I'm really loving it right now, so I have to, is that the best street photography to me is what captures those unfiltered emotions and stories in everyday life. That means sometimes, inevitably, you have to get close. You have to point your camera, okay, not like that. You have to point your camera at someone and shoot them without asking for permission. Now that's incredibly awkward. I've already gotten in a shouting match with someone. I've got weird looks. I've got people saying, "Oh, why are you taking photos?" It's awkward, and it takes some level of, risk tolerance or confrontation. But I don't care. I'm going to carry on shooting strangers in the street because I need to get used to that discomfort. And I want to become good at this. And sometimes you just have to accept it and say, well, yeah, that's the reality. You have to get used to it, mate. You have to get used to this awkwardness so you can produce something good and great and something that maybe others won't be willing to. If I don't, I'll be stuck taking these boring, faraway photos or, shooting the back of people's heads. Yeah, it's been done before. It's boring. No one cares, right? I have to go over that. I have to cross that boundary. Automatically, getting over that uncomfortable bit puts me ahead of many other photographers. And I know that there are other photographers who are leagues ahead of me in confidence. And they can just, get right up close. They can really capture the moments that no one else is going to capture. And that is what I look up to. And that's what I want to become one day. Only they can take those photos because only they have the balls to do it. Now listen, I'm not saying that doing something crazy or ballsy automatically makes your work better. It doesn't. But I'm saying that increases your potential. And that is the point. And to end it on a light-hearted, maybe more wholesome note, I've noticed that original thinking needs a good creative mood. You need to feel good and happy. Because when I'm stressed or pissed off or burned out and I'm trying to produce something original, I just can't do it. And the more I force it, the worse it gets and the more angry I get. And anything you do produce is probably going to be uninspired or boring. Creativity is easiest when your mind is light and it's open and you can get into that flow state more easily. And from there, everything you produce, because there was some happiness behind it, there was some optimism, it just reflects into your work. It feels better. For example, if I'm writing something at 2 a.m. and I'm completely mentally fried, nothing's coming out. I may as well just quit and try again later. And when I do try again later, with a more optimistic outlook, I'm having fun and I'm making jokes and all that, it will reflect in the writing and hopefully to you eventually. It becomes fun, it becomes fluid, and that passion shines through in the final result. And you can really tell when someone was in a good mood while making a piece of work. Those are my tips on original thinking, so let me know what you thought. And of course, remember to check out Planet Wild's community. And if you want to see them in action, then have a look at this video on their peatland restoration in Belgium. So I hope you enjoy and thank you so much for watching.